so today we're going to be interviewing Tom Arguello. Did I say your name right?
You did a pretty good job.
Yeah. Okay, how would you say that?
No, I say it a number of different ways. It's Arguello. I also say it Arguello. I also respond to hey you.
Okay.
It's whatever.
Hey you. Well, we have hey you today. Just kidding. Tom Arguello, and you are just such an inspiration because you healed yourself from testicular cancer, completely overhauled your entire lifestyle, and of course have just incredible viewpoints on the food system, healthcare in general, and a lot of great advice to give to other people who are trying to heal themselves in this very sick world. So what kind of introduction can you share with viewers and listeners today about kind of your story and how you kind of got into this journey towards adopting a healthier lifestyle?
Sure. So, my cancer story actually started long before I was ever diagnosed because, growing up, I was born into a traditional Hispanic family down here in South Texas, and we ate a diet of my mom made a lot of scratch-made food, but as I continued to grow into my early childhood and adulthood, I just kind of went down the wrong path of diet and lifestyle. I started eating a lot of junk food, processed foods, sodas, and that kind of spiraled into a number of, health-related conditions early into my 20s and early 30s. Which eventually, manifested itself as cancer. 2 weeks before my 37th birthday, I was diagnosed with testicular cancer. But that, before that, it was fatty liver disease, it was obesity, it was high blood pressure, stage 2 hypertension, anxiety, depression, you name it. It was like a laundry list of conditions that I was suffering from. And ultimately, what I discovered was that, I really needed to heal my entire life and not just specifically one illness, not just cancer, but every aspect of my life needed healing. I needed a complete overhaul. And it just so happened that cancer was that catalyst that kind of put me over the edge and made me reevaluate my life and what I was doing at that point.
Absolutely. And I think it's really important that you point that out, the idea that cancer isn't just a specific symptom like within the body. It is the result of toxicity and acidosis and, cumulative lifestyle effects over a period of time. And Dr. Thomas Lodi, who runs an Oasis of Healing, Holistic Cancer Healing Center, he says the same thing. When people get diagnosed with the affliction, he's like, don't freak out because technically you've probably had cancer for decades. You just didn't know because it didn't manifest its symptoms. It's like when you suppress a cold with some cough syrup and then you get pneumonia and you take some different, medication to cover that and then it comes back as some sort of skin affliction or whatever. It's like the body's trying to say things and at the end of the day it's giving awareness to the fact that it's just the entire system is out of balance. So I think that's really, really incredible. So you said that it was kind of like a bomb just dropped on you. What was your first reaction? And you said that you did not use chemo. So what was kind of the protocol that you decided to implement?
Right. So when I was diagnosed, I went in, my appointment was like the very last appointment on that Friday. I had kept putting it off for like a year or almost a year. So, what you said was exactly right on that, you actually have more time than you realize because, I had cancer at least the beginning stages of it for who knows how long. It finally took that long for me to go to the doctor to do something about it. But so I was there. It was Friday afternoon, the last appointment. I was there by myself. And, the doctor came and examined me and was, well, there's a strong possibility, this is very unusual. Let's send you over to get the ultrasound. And I did that. And they brought the results of that ultrasound back immediately. And it was like, yeah, there's a strong cancer diagnosis here. And so he says, go ahead and wait out in the lobby, and we're going to go ahead and you need surgery right away. Cancel your trips. I had a business trip planned that following week. He said, cancel it. We need surgery right away. And so I was just sitting there in the waiting room while, the office person was calling my insurance company and scheduling appointments. And I'm just there freaking out. I mean, I was totally numb, and it was like a nuclear bomb went off in my life. Prior to that, I had never known anybody in my personal circle, my family or friends, who ever had any cancer of any kind. So this was a complete and brand new experience for me. It was like cancer was something that happened to other people. It didn't happen to me or anybody that I knew. So it wasn't really real for me, if that makes sense. And I did go ahead and go through with the surgery the following week. And so I went ahead and had the cancerous testicle removed, and that was, of course, sent to the lab, and they did a full pathology report on it. And I was diagnosed as having what's called a classic seminoma, which my oncologist told me later. He said, that's the one that you want. If you're going to get any kind of cancer, that's the one that you want. And I'm here thinking, wait, is there really such a thing as a good cancer to have?
Yeah.
So after meeting with my oncologist and reviewing my pathology report, he said that cancer cells had gotten loose in my bloodstream, and there was a strong possibility for a reoccurrence of cancer metastasizing somewhere else in the body. And so as a result of that, he wanted me to pursue chemotherapy, as a preventative measure. And I got a lot of pressure from my family and friends and from the oncologist's office itself to pursue that chemotherapy. And I almost did it. I actually scheduled the appointment and I backed out of it. And the reason I did was because, I had been suffering from a number of conditions. Like I just spouted off that laundry list of conditions. And I finally came to the point where I realized that, I need to stop outsourcing my health to somebody else. I need to finally take ownership of it. I need to, really use this opportunity to listen to the message that cancer was giving me, and that I was sick and I was toxic, and I was a toxic person way before I was diagnosed with cancer. I had suffered from anxiety and depression and just this, kind of being a fringe dweller in society, of not really knowing my place in the world, or not knowing where I fit in, or trying to connect with people on a material level, not really having any deep relationships outside of my marriage. And so I kind of took this opportunity to kind of take stock of my life and really kind of grab the bull by the horns and say, hey, you know what, I'm going to do this, and if I'm going to heal on my own terms in every aspect of my life. And so I did not do any chemotherapy. Instead, I started doing tons of research. I took some time off of work, and I just started, reviewing every single item I could on, online, documentaries, YouTube, podcasts, everything. I started consuming information, books, you name it. And the result of that was kind of came up with my own, program. I didn't follow one specific, Gerson was a heavy influence, but I decided that I really wanted to do kind of a multifaceted approach to use this opportunity to heal my mind, body, and spirit, the whole package. And so I started out by drinking a gallon of raw juice. Well, let me back up. I first purged my pantry of everything that was processed, every junk food. I cease and desist. I stopped immediately. Stopped eating, all this crap that I'd been eating for decades. Junk food, fast food, soda, processed food, GMOs. I purged my pantry of all of that immediately, and just decided to go start eating clean. Start with the vegetable juice. I started drinking over a liter of raw vegetable juice a day that I juiced myself at home. And so I just immediately detoxed. And I think, it's really about, obviously, getting healthy is about what you're eating, but it's also largely about what you're not eating.
Absolutely.
So to immediately cut out all of that processed food and junk food immediately, get that out of your system, and then start consuming the micronutrients, the grains, the cruciferous vegetables, and get all that good stuff in your system so you can detox completely first. And, after a few weeks and months of that, I really noticed this mental fog was gone, and I had this clarity. I was thinking better and clearer. And that kind of led to a sort of an awakening that is, for lack of a better word, that I had a few months later. It's just, I started just receiving, this information, like downloads of information. And, it was really a thirst for knowledge that I had that has really never stopped to this day.
Beautiful. And so all that research that led you to develop what you call, is it the kitchen sink kind of method, or just like what would you describe as like your protocol then for, like, in addition to a gallon of green juice? I think you told me that you thrive mostly in like lots of live food, so lots of raw, plant-based, vegan food, so fruits and vegetables, nuts, seeds, that sort of stuff.
Absolutely.
Great, yeah. And I mean, a very low glycemic diet, or just in general, like you said, you pull from different philosophies on what's ideal?
Exactly, but it was mainly, raw.
Cool, yeah.
And of course, my wife was making these awesome scratch-made meals, which I think was the biggest kind of paradigm shift, as opposed to eating out all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're eating out, you don't know the story of your food. You don't know where it's coming from. All you know is that a Cisco truck backs up and delivers all this frozen stuff, and then somebody heats it up and they put it on a plate in a portion that's way too big.
Yeah.
And so to kind of shift from eating out to eating in slow food as opposed to fast food, that was big for us.
Yeah.
And of course, it wasn't just me. I changed my diet and lifestyle, but my whole family did at the same time. So we all kind of changed together. And there was definitely benefits to that, for the kids.
You say that, and I've seen, because we're connected on Facebook as well too, but your kids like love green smoothies and juices, and they look just so healthy. And tell us about what happened at your wife's childcare center with like the food there.
Right. So at my wife opened a daycare center. Started out in our home. It was an in-home center, and she was watching the neighborhood kids, and we got the idea to kind of open and expand into a larger commercial facility. And when she started, this was almost 7 years ago, when she first started out, her staff and was serving traditional foods that you find at any daycare center, like, fruit cocktail and heavy syrup, chicken nuggets, stuff like that. And stuff that wasn't necessarily healthy, but, it was cost efficient, cost effective. Mm-hmm. And when I got sick and when we decided to change our diet and lifestyle, my wife and I were just talking, and we just came to the realization that, we cannot in good conscience continue to serve unhealthy food to kids if we're eating better. We need to, have a positive ripple effect in the community. And that's what we did. Mm-hmm. We essentially did the same thing that we did at home, just kind of purge the pantry, but we did that at the child care center and totally rebranded from and really just came up with an entirely new concept. In child care, which before it was called the Lily Pad Child Care Center. It's now called the Lily Pad Garden School because we have 500 square feet of garden space, it's all organic. Yeah. And what we've done is incorporate sustainability and gardening and eating healthy and all of that good stuff. We've incorporated that into the curriculum of the school. So not only are they learning early childhood education and with concepts like phonemic awareness and, kindergarten readiness, but now they're also learning about, gardening and learning about sustainability and learning about composting, and they're actually participating in, watering and caring for the crops and harvesting. And some of that food that we harvest is then served inside. So, it's just, I couldn't be more happy that.
Yeah. That's a great accomplishment. That's really great to hear too. So skipping back to more of the cancer diagnosis, there never was a resurgence of it. I remember reading, you said something about how when someone said, well, how did you know you were cured? Or how did you know you were healed? And you said, I forgot I was sick. So right. Is that just kind of the journey then? So after you made this huge lifestyle overhaul and went through the detoxification process, which can be very hard, because it's just brings so much up physically, which results in just a lot of emotional stuff coming up. And then over the years, you just how would you, I guess, quantify what results in you saying that you are healed?
Well, I have kind of a unique take on this because, it's easy to say that, yes, it's completely cancer-free, never come back.
Mm-hmm.
But I really think that, the cure is you, and the cure is to continue eating and continue acting like you still have cancer. So in other words, you never stop.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a diet, it's a lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
And I still drink green juice every day. I still do my protocol every day. I'm 100% plant-based today. I started. I had flirted with being 100% plant-based at various points and done, a few days here, a week here, inconsistently. But all the while, we were still eating organic and clean, absolutely, and going off like the Dirty Dozen 2015 that comes out every year. But when I turned 40 years old, I said, I've got to go 100% plant-based, and I'm not going back. And I've done it now for quite some time, and I don't plan to stop that. And that really is the key in mitigating your risk for cancer or any disease, because you have to realize that, we live in a toxic environment. It's the air we breathe. We don't necessarily have control over that. We don't necessarily have control over outside circumstances that might lead to stress or a weakened immune system, but you can control how you react to those situations and to those circumstances through meditation and through, stress management, exercise, getting out in nature. Mm-hmm. And so, that's really how I live my life. I don't let it consume me. I don't think about it. I don't dwell on it. But I also know that the power of mind over matter and the power of epigenetics, the concept of your genes are not necessarily your destiny, but you really have the power over them based on the quality of your thoughts and the energy that you project, your thoughts, feelings, and emotion, which really tie into it. And so, to say that I forgot I was sick, well, yes, I forgot. I'm not letting it, like I always say, cancer is a part of your story, but it's not the entire book. It's just a chapter. Your story is far from over. And so that's how I live my life. I just try to live a healthy and happy, lifestyle.
Yeah.
Perfectly.
Wonderful. One of the things I appreciate about you and your journey is the acknowledgement of the concept that there is a vibration of perfect health and that we are all in control of our own physical well-being and mental well-being. And I'd like to hear your thoughts more on, I guess, what some would call sort of like the law of attraction in terms of healing and adopting a mentality of health, because I know that you don't like the words like battle or kill cancer, because it's very low vibrational thought forms. Rather, let's focus on what we want to create, something about boosting health, nourishing, mind, body, and spirit. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, and that's a great point. Health really begins within. And I always say, that going back to outsourcing health, you can't do that. You are your best healthcare provider. And that starts from within. It starts with your quality of thoughts. It starts with, toxic thinking and cleansing that toxic thinking through practices like mindfulness and meditation. But you're right. I did not, I decided early on that I wasn't going to traditionally use the phrases like battle cancer or fight cancer. Some people say fuck cancer.
Yeah,
right. Sorry, kids. But I went the other way. I just decided I've always been the kind of person that went against the mainstream. So there was like this typical way of thinking or doing something. I want to do the opposite of it. I want to swim upstream. And that was kind of me rebelling. Is like, no, I'm not going to fall into that kind of low vibrational mentality just because that's what everybody else does. I'm going to try something different. I'm going to go my own way. And that's what I did. And you cannot heal when you are using negative words, negative thoughts. Thoughts and words are like checks that you send out to the universe. They're going to be cashed eventually. Sometimes they're going to be returned to you. Like law of attraction says, like attracts like. Yep. What you put out comes back to you. And so keeping that in the back of my mind, I always put out positivity. I always put out love. I always put out, just kind of being Zen practice of just kind of going with the flow. And when you are using words like fight cancer, battle cancer, what you're essentially doing is you're exercising a negativity muscle. You're doing resistance training. You're pushing back instead of allowing that cancer to kind of merge with you in a sense, and let it become a part of your story, like I said, but not the whole chapter, not the whole book. And you are going to be changed by cancer or by any disease. That's indisputable. What the only question is if it's going to be for the better or for the worse, and that part is completely up to you. And so I would argue that to heal the physical body, you have to heal the soul first. You have to do that soul work, just like before you work out, you need to work in, you need to start inside. And that's where, that's what I was talking about, kind of like that holistic mind, body, and spirit approach to healing. But I'm a big believer in the power of positive thinking and the power of thoughts, and the quality of your thoughts. So I know a lot of people, when I either talk about that kind of stuff or post that kind of stuff, some people are kind of turned off by that. But I think you really have to be open-minded in your approach to health and wellness and realize that there's more than one way to heal. My way might not be the right way for you or for anybody else, but it works for me. And just know that, to have an open mind means that you are then open to different possibilities, different ways of healing. Take the good, take what you want from it. You might be able to pick something up. Maybe it doesn't work for you, but just keep an open mind.
Absolutely. I definitely agree that, like any affliction or life circumstance, cancer has messages to share. And at the end of the day, it's about, like, on a higher perspective, acknowledging the union and oneness. Like, there really is no separation. So it's like, we created cancer, you must accept it and embrace the lessons that are there to learn, and then let it go and heal. And I think you described that so eloquently and very accurately. So I think we covered most of what I'm really just very happy to have obtained from you. But can you give some advice to people who, statistically, 1 in 2 men and 1 in 3 women will be diagnosed with cancer in their lifetimes, and that's already a reality. It's not like by 2050, it's like, unfortunately, that is the reality today. Cancer is the last affliction people want to hear that they're diagnosed with, and I know that it results in a lot of fear. So if someone is watching this podcast because they're looking for hope, they're looking for information, what could you say to them so they just know that, there's alternative ways, maybe provide some different ideas of resources they could look into, or just what worked for you, whatever you'd like to share?
The first thing that I want to say to somebody with cancer who's been recently diagnosed is that, it feel like the walls are caving in, and that, it may seem hopeless, that all is lost, but it really isn't, because just like you said, cancer it's an epidemic, and we need to be aware. But at the same time, you can't let it, put you down a path of fear. You have to stay positive. That's a must. That's a non-negotiable. You have to stay positive. You are going to go through, the stages of grief, just like I did. I went through that. I went through a period of darkness, but I came out of it. And I think you kind of have to go through that period of darkness to really purge all of that and get it out of your system. So that way what's left is nothing but light and love and positivity. But cancer is a messenger. Just be aware and show up for the lesson. And it could be telling you that you're sick. It could be telling you that your body's sick. It could be telling you that you need to change your diet and lifestyle, or it could be a harbinger of something else. It could be saying that there's another area of your life that needs healing or that needs attention, something that is not resonating with you mentally, physically, or spiritually. And the other thing that I would point out is that it's really important that we get back to nature. we need to get back to a natural way of living, what I call living an unprocessed life, in all aspects of life. The more we distance ourselves from that nature relationship, the more of a chance we have for disease to come in. And I'm not just talking about food. I'm talking about, we live in a concrete jungle. We don't often take time to unplug and reconnect back to nature. And I think that's so important, especially in today's times where we're so, involved in this.
Yeah, right.
We need what we're doing. But technology is neutral. It can be either used for good or for nefarious reasons, and using it definitely for good. And I try to use my, social media profiles for good to have that positive ripple effect as well.
Everything has a positive or negative repercussions. Like you eat too much of one food, even if it's a healthy food, you have bad effects, and can use technology to further a message or, destroy lives.
It's all about balance, really. Yeah. Moderation in everything. And a good example of this is your body can be too alkaline. That's the thing, and, you do need to have that acidity in there somewhere to balance it out. Yeah, for cancer patients, obviously, who are actively treating, we need to keep that pH level higher, and that was my focus. Mm-hmm. And that was the purpose of that kind of alkaline diet that I was on, was to keep that high and really ramp up the exercise. I started running outside to try to oxygenate my cells, oxygenate the body, get that sunlight, that vitamin D, that natural vitamin D, and that serotonin, that dopamine going, the positive cocktail, that's unleashed in the brain, get that going as well. But really just do your own research and don't be forced into anything that you don't want to do by your family, by your doctor. I mean, doctors are well-intentioned. I've met a lot of, great people who happen to be doctors, and a lot of doctors who happen to be good people. But the fact of the matter is they are just not educated on nutrition. I think they receive less than 8 hours of nutrition from a day or something. And they practice medicine, but they only practice the way that they're taught, and it may not necessarily result in an actual cure. It could be just a prolonging of your life based on the masking of a certain set of symptoms. And you really have to take ownership of your health. And that's done by reevaluating what you have control over, which is what you put in your body, what you put on your skin, and really what you put in here and what you put in here. It all ties together.
Absolutely. So much great wisdom. Thank you so much for sharing. I'm sure that all the information via this interview and, of course, the written interview is going to help a lot of people. So thank you for taking the time, again, just sharing your story and, sharing all the wisdom that you've accumulated over the few years. Perfect. So for viewers, can you please share the resources that you are offering to the world and where they can find those online or any groups you've started?
Absolutely. So right after I was diagnosed, 13, I started an Instagram page called The Green Health Project. So on Instagram, I'm at The Green Health Project, and I post way too much, but I can't help it because I'm very passionate about it. And so I post on Instagram at The Green Health Project. Okay. It's about a lot of different topics, from everything from juicing recipes to general health and wellness to personal development to kind of metaphysical things, law of attraction. A lot of memes. I post a lot of memes, probably too many memes, but what I try to do is I post the memes. I like to take a humorous approach to things. Yeah. And I want it in the caption, in the comments, I put serious information. So I just kind of hook you in, and then you read it, and okay, yeah, there's the good stuff. So at The Green Health on Instagram, at Tom Arguello on Facebook, and Next month, I'm actually starting a podcast with a good friend of mine, Marianella Perdea, who's a host she's on the Travel Channel. She's been, all over the place on the news, and she has her own kind of personal food philosophy called Foodism. But we're kind of joining forces to do a podcast called Talking Shift. So we're gonna be talking about a lot of different topics about authentic living, about health and wellness, alternative medicine, just really kind of making those small shifts in your everyday life to really help take your health, take your life to the next level. So that's what that's all about, and that's going to be starting in October. And we would love to have you on.
Thank you, pleasure, absolute pleasure. Well, I'll post all those links in the information box below so people can just click onto them. And just once again, thank you so much for sharing all this wonderful information.
Thank you.